What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I am back with the best bets for the week in the world of mixed martial arts. And you know what? It's a very busy week in mixed martial arts this weekend. So, do you know, we're going to have some extra bets. We have the big UFC card, obviously going down to Cejudo versus Song Yadong. And then we have the other two cards that I previewed this week, KSW 103 and Octagon 67, I believe. Let me just look here. 67, yes. So I'm going to give you 9 big bets this week. 9 big bets. 3 bets from each of those events, and let's see if we can make a bit of money on it. So hopefully we can. Last week, before we get to next week, was par for the course, really. We've been hitting a lot of 50-50 weeks, or our flyer didn't hit, as it never does, that heavyweight fight. We hit 2 from 4, so we went 50-50 on the other 4 bets. All I would say on this one was, and I'm never, you know me, the judging guy, I never give out about judging hardly, but this Ketlin Souza Andrew Hill fight was, if this isn't robbery of the year, I think we have we have serious issues, because I thought this was I thought it was pretty clear rounds 2 and 3 for Souza, but she didn't get it, and the bet didn't hit. So, and I'm not one of these, and I'm not one of these people just because I gave the better, I bet it or whatever that I'm giving out. I look the fights, I look at the judging, the betting in the secondary to that, in terms of, like, you can't be that biased. I think you have to be biased towards actual sport, and then we can look afterwards. But that one, in that case, no, not a great one. So minus 105 didn't hit. Or Rodriguez a minus 225, very surprising, to be honest. But what a display from Cannonier. But the other 2 bets did hit. Zalal to win by decision. Not to go full judge it again, but he went full open scoring on it there in the 3rd round, and won at minus 125, so that was pretty good. And then the Budka Shabazian under 2.5 rounds at minus 146. I don't know if we'll get a better bet at a better price than that all weekend. I think did Budka get released from the UFC even after that? He's not a UFC fighter anyway. He was not that good. And I was actually looking at it when some more of the props came on. I was literally looking at it like 10 minutes before the fight. I was very close to betting on. He was 7-2, so what would that be? Plus 350, is that it? To win in the first round by a knockout. And I was very close to betting it, but I didn't in the end. But Shabazian just won that going away. But that was as surefire a bet as you're going to get in mixed martial arts. So to this week. And let's talk about the 3 cards. So 3 bets from Octagon, 3 bets from KSW, and 3 bets from the UFC. I'm going to start off with Octagon. And honestly, I went back and forth on this bet. But the first bet I'm going to give is Sam Creasey to retain his title in the main event at minus 188. The reason I thought a little bit about it was because I do think this is a 50-50 fight. I do think Bino Ademia is a very good fighter, and a plus 140. I was looking at that price and thinking, like, that's a pretty good price. Like, that is, like, I'm looking at this fight and I think it should be like a minus 120, minus 110 sort of fight. So if you're to bet purely on the money, purely on the price, I would go that. But I reeled myself in a little bit, because I at the end of the day, I do think Creasey will win, and minus 188 is not a terrible price. It's not a terrible price, especially if you're doing maybe a few of these, maybe doing not necessarily an accumulator. It'd be hard to get 9 bets off, but doing a Yankee or something like that. I do like Creasey in this fight. Like, if you haven't, please look at the preview. But what I basically said in that is, the biggest issue for Bino Ademia is his takedown defense, and Creasey comes alive when he gets the fight to the ground, and he has good takedowns as well. He times them very well, and I think when Creasey fights someone like this, he can shine, because sometimes it's, look, as it is for many people in mixed martial arts these days, who are excellent on top, like Creasey is, getting the fight to the ground might be the hardest bit. Now, he's good at that, but Ademia, that's his biggest issue, as I said. He's very good standing, like a very accurate switch stance, good head movement type of fighter. And Creasey, for all his improvements, I don't think he is as good as Ademia on the in the standing, but Creasey is the type of guy who will know that and have no problem saying that to himself, and will not even entertain the idea of putting himself in trouble. Now, will he be happy to strike with him for a while? Absolutely. I don't think he'll be afraid of him or anything like that. But he'll be looking for that takedown. He'll be looking to win rounds, and he'll be looking to win that fight. So yeah, that's basically why I've gone for Creasey. Again, a close enough fight, but I don't know. Like, if it was plus 188 for Ademi, I probably would have leaned to him, if you get me. Is the plus 140 big enough? Maybe not, and maybe it will move again. Let me just see, has it moved since? No, it's only up in a couple of days, but literally a couple of days. Oh no, it's up since February 11th, so it's up, yeah. So it hasn't moved yet. If it doesn't move, I'll stick with Creasey. But yeah, I think great fight, but Creasey's the old dog for the hard road, I think, in that one. Okay, bet number 2. This is again an interesting one here. I'm going for Mark Hulme to win at minus 110 in his fight with Andreas Michailidis. Now, people might know the name Michailidis. He fought against Alex Pereira, fought in the UFC a couple of times, and he's taken on Mark Hulme here, who is a very, very well respected guy and a good fighter too, no doubt about it. It's funny for a guy, and I'm just pulling it up here, but I believe he's no knockouts in his career, but he's not a bad striker for a guy who has no knockouts, but everything is to set up that takedown. And again, if you want to hear more about this, please listen to the previews. I did one with Brian Lacey for Octagon, and did one by myself, did for KSW as well. But Michailidis is what Michailidis is, getting on a little bit now at 36 years of age. Hulme is only 30. And a guy who hasn't had that much in terms of MMA experience is not the word, but he hasn't taken that much damage throughout it. He is one of these guys who loves to take the fight to the ground and dominate people there. As I said, everything take up the takedown. He loves that Dagestani handcuff, loves the ground and pound, a lot of rear naked chokes, takes the bag back well, and drag lads to the ground. And I think for Michailidis, a guy who is normally fights that way himself as well, I think that might be an issue, especially later in the fight. I think he does get tired. I think against kind of a guy who is taller than him, bigger than him, stronger than him, younger than him, faster than him, I think that might be a big issue. Like, can he stop the takedown? I believe, I think in the first round, I wouldn't at all be surprised if Michailidis did stop one or two of the takedowns. But again, does Michailidis have enough of a striking advantage to get Hulme out of there when it's standing? I don't think so. I really don't think so. He's lost his last 2 as well. Hulme is coming off a 4-fight winning streak, and then one, I think only lost one of his last 10 or something like that. This guy is a real, real good talent, and I was honestly surprised to see the betting being that close. So Mark Hulme minus 110 is the second bet of the week. The third bet of the week is a little bit more risky. I'm going for the underdog in this one, and I'm going for Milos Petrasek to beat Mick Stanton, and he's plus 110. I have a great respect for Mick Stanton. He's been a really, really, really good fighter down through the years. Cage Warriors champion, that fight against Will Curry, where he had all those reversals, was absolutely amazing. It was brilliant, and he's really good in that clinch, really good at taking lads down, and he has power as well, serious power on the feet. But I don't think he'd be wanting to use that against Petrasek. I think he'd be wanting to get the fight to the ground. And the biggest issue for me here is, and why I was a little bit reticent about picking Petrasek, is that his biggest issue is he gets himself to the clinch a little bit too much. He steps in with lovely jabs, steps in with lovely right hands, but it gets him to the, he's a little bit like a fencer, but it gets him to the cage an awful lot. It gets him to the clinch an awful lot. He is very good there, right? Very good defensively. And he usually ends up on top when someone tries to take him down against the fence, or whether he tries to get the fight to the fence. But you're fighting one, literally, people might think this is a bit crazy, but I think one of the best reversal fighters in the world in Mick Stanton. He's so good at it. that's dangerous for Petrasek. But like if he's watched his fight and tries to avoid that, and fights maybe a tad differently in that respect, I think he might have too much for Mick Stanton here. Like he's a lot of finishes in his repertoire. Again, a guy like who hasn't had the best of it over the last few years, but you know he had a couple of years off, won his last fight. You know, had a few tough matchups against Jeremy Kimball, who's a very well-rounded guy in Octagon as well. So, you know, still at this stage of his career, I think there's a little bit in him. Whereas at 38 as well, it's going to be tough for Mick Stanton to keep up, I suppose, that work rate and everything like that. I just think he might be a little bit too much for Stanton on the feet, so I'm going for him to get that. I'm going for him just to win straight up, but I think he might have enough in terms of the big power shots. And if he can win those battles to get on top and stay on top, I think the fight is definitely there for him. So, yeah, those are the bets from Octagon. Right. Let's get to KSW next. And I'll start with the main event. And I'm going to pick Leo Brichta to beat Lucas Hardzewski. And he is, let me just check there again. He is minus 188. If you listen to the preview talking about Brichta, you know, I really enjoyed watching his striking as I was watching tape for him. Very good head movement, counters kicks so well, flows from kind of low hands to high hands, very accurate backhand. You know, he's fighting more of a kickboxer here as well. His biggest issue is takedowns is Brichta, but I don't think that'll be the issue here. Will it be the issue here? I don't know. Like Hardzewski does wrestle a lot, but I think the way he wrestles, he kind of jabs into it an awful lot, fights out from the cage very well, is good dirty boxing. So like he gives up on his wrestling a little bit too much, and I like for a guy who's fighting a guy like Brichta. And I think that might be the issue. Like I've gone back and forth in this fight, and I think I might have even threw out that I might be picking Hardzewski. But the more I think about it, the more I think that like his dirty boxing is really good, and his ability against the cage is really good as well. And he doesn't necessarily give up on the takedowns, right? When he's in on them, but when he gets to the cage, and you need to control a guy like Brichta, I think that's going to be an issue for him as well. Like Brichta has a lot of finishes, you know, 10 finishes in his 12 wins in his career. He's coming off of 2 losses as well. You know, he's the hometown guy. He's going to have a lot of people over in the Czech Republic cheering for him as well. I just think it's a really big fight for him. And if he can fight a similar sort of fight that he fought, you know, against Roman Skaminsky a couple of fights ago, you know, or Kirill Magomedov, who he beat back in 2021, you know, that level of fighter is, I think, a little bit above Lucas. And I think if he can get back to level, and you know, it's funny, we'll talk about Cejudo and Song in a few minutes. If he can get to that level, he should have enough. So that is that's bet number 1 for KSW. Bet number 2, I'm going with, and this is proof I'm not biased, right? I'm going with Stephen Kirt, who's fighting Henry Fedipe, the Irishman, and he's minus 225. Now, again, not the greatest price in the world on this one, but Henry's taking this at short notice, and I think this is a pretty bad matchup for Henry, if I'm being honest. I think Kirt is one of those guys. Watching his tape, the biggest issue, I think, for Henry is how good the chin of Kirt is. Or Crit. He loves to get in a war, throws hard, ends up in clinches an awful lot, and does take take the fight to the ground, which will be tough for Henry. Now, if Henry goes into a war, he absolutely can win it, because Henry hits very, very hard as well. But the Crit's ability to take a guy down after getting into that war is very, very good. And we must look at his record as well. He's 6-2, but he lost his first 2 fights and has won 6 in a row since. Beat Boris Barakovsky last time out in KSW. That was a big step up. He finished him. Was supposed to be fighting someone else here, but Henry comes in and takes it on short notice. Like Henry, 14, 12-1 in his career now. He's lost 3 of his last 4, but in the middle of that, like he beat Christian Kazabowski, has had a great run of it since he came back from kind of his retirement there in 2017, won 4 fights in a row, and has, won 1 since against, won 5 out of his 8 fights. Not bad at all for a guy, who had taken a good few losses down through his career. But I think this is a tough matchup, especially against a guy, if I'm not mistaken, who's been, preparing here, and he hasn't, obviously. So that's going to be real tough. I think if you look at Crit as well, he doesn't have that much damage taken. He can fight everywhere. If the fight goes wrong on the feet for Crit, he can take it down. And I think that might be a big issue for Henry, because like Henry, a lot of his wins are against guys who maybe are going to fight him on the feet or maybe get caught and haven't that second option, whereas I think Crit has. And I think I would be surprised if he got Henry out of there on the feet quickly. I think this first round could be absolutely bonkers, to be honest. But I do think a takedown might be the way forward here. I could see Felipe clipping him, to be honest, because he, as I said, he has an unbelievable chin, and Henry is a really good boxer, a really good fighter. I don't want it to sound like Henry's just a boxer. He's good on the ground as well. He's a few submission wins in his career, but defensively, I think, the wrestling defense might be an issue against a guy like Crit. So he is the pick at -225. And the final pick from KSW, again at -225, but I think I really like this price an awful lot. Is Humburger in his fight against Boris Dikovsky, and he's -225 as well. Humburger been around now for a good while. He comes from the military background and always has a lot of people behind him. Obviously, he's fighting in the Czech Republic now as well. And those fans are going to be massively behind him. Like, he's lost 2 of his last 3, absolutely, but he lost to Bartosz Lesko and Michalski, both by decision. I remember we talked about one of them in one of the previews, or both of them, and Lesko especially, that's a horrid matchup for him. Like, but he's still, he stuck in there and got to the end. A lot of finishes either side of that, though, and this man is a finisher: 8 wins, 1 decision, 7 knockouts. So I really like him in this. Like, Boris is only 5 fights into his career. He's the type of guy, I think, that hasn't got to that level yet. He's fought 4 times in KSW, but the level of opponent I just don't think isn't there yet. Couple of knockouts in there as well, but I like Dominik Humburger a lot. I just think he's one of those guys as well that will outlast you. He's the sort of guy who could lose the first round, but he's going to win the second and third, maybe get a finish even in the third. Like, and when I said it, like, look at some of his finishes. Halfway through the second round, third round TKO, second round TKO, second round TKO. Like, he's a guy who is well able to keep going into the fight and well able to win it. So he is bet number 3 from KSW. Am I saying bet number 3? Correct, bet number 3. Right, let's get to the UFC, and let's talk about some of those fights over there. So the first bet I'm going to give you from the UFC is, I'll pull up my notes. We'll start with the main event. Let's talk about the main event for a second. So honestly, I'll give you the bet first, and then we'll talk about it. I'm going to go with Cejudo versus Song to go to a decision at -138. And I've put a lot of thought into this fight, watched a bit of tape, and I'll be honest with you, I really don't know what Henry Cejudo is going to turn up. I just recorded my Q&A that I do in Severe May Weekly, and if people haven't signed up to the Severe May Patreon, please do, and all of that. And someone asked me, does Henry Cejudo have one last run left? There was a question was put to me, and honestly, I couldn't answer the question. I really don't know. Like, he has shown bits and pieces in the last couple of fights. So he's lost his last 2 to Merab and Sterling, but he has shown bits and pieces in both of those. Like, is it a case of Henry Cejudo at 38 years of age, just turned 38 last week? It's February now. Just remind myself. since his 34th birthday, he's only had 2 fights and lost both of them. Like, is it a bit foolhardy to think he can win, right? But also, is it a bit of foolhardy to not look at it and say, like, those are the 2 guys he fought, and Song is not really on their level, is he? If he had fought someone on Song's level in those 2 fights, would he have won? I don't know. Maybe that's not the way we should be looking at it, but sometimes you have to look at it that way. But now, and you have to look at it that way because it's very hard to assess a guy like Cejudo like we would assess a guy like, let me look at the card here, a guy like Rob Font or Brendan Allen or Fluffy Hernandez. You know, okay, maybe Rob Font, but let's say Fluffy Hernandez, right? Fluffy's probably had 5 fights in the last 18 months. We know the change he's made in his career. We know where he is. Very easy to assess him. How will the fight go? Look, we can all debate that, right? But for Henry Cejudo, you not only have to think about how the fight goes, you have to assess how he's going to look and how he's going to match up against Song. So, from that point of view, I really don't know who's going to win. The one thing I would say, and the reason I've picked this fight to go to a decision, I think that Henry Cejudo has had a lot of injuries over the last while. And when a guy announces kind of the injuries and pulls out of things, and he generally will be fit when he takes a fight. Now, not always. We can look at the TJ Dillashaw's and all, but I think he is coming into this fight prepared. And I think the other thing I would say about Henry Cejudo as well, and I mightn't come off this way, but I think he's a really smart guy. I've spoken to Kalen Cochran, who prepared with him for one of his fights, and a few other people as well, and they told me like he is a really smart guy. He does this gimmick and all of this, and we can discuss that in another place. But I think Cejudo is the type of guy who will make this fight as close as possible if he is not winning it. What I mean by that is if he comes out and he can, get his takedowns going or get his striking going from the outside with his karate stance and is not getting caught by strikes from Song, I think he'll be fine and continue to do that. But if I think he gets in there and he looks or feels like he's a bit slower or feels like Song is getting on top, he will adjust his game well enough to either win the fight or stay close in that fight. Whereas there's a lot of fighters cannot do that. A lot of fighters wouldn't even dream of trying to do that. But I do think he is one of those guys. And that's the reason I think this fight will go long. Like, do I think Henry will take him down and submit him or knock him out on the feet? No. Do I think Song will knock him out on the feet? Like, unless Henry is completely finished, I don't think so. Like, Song's record, 21 wins, 9 knockouts. Not a whole lot. He's 8 losses in his career as well, which is a bit crazy. Like, who's the best fighter he's ever knocked out? I'm looking here. Ricky Simon, probably. Would that be fair to say, looking back through it? I think it is Ricky Simon. Ricky Simon, good fighter, no doubt about it, but he's not Henry Cejudo. So, yeah. I like the fight to go decision. 5 rounds, -138. Right. The next fight I'm going with is Basharat to win by decision at -163. And he's, funnily enough, who's he fighting? Ricky Simon. So just Javid Basharat. His brother's on this card, is he? No, he's not. I love this fight. I really, really like this fight. The reason, so I'm a big fan of the Basharat brothers and Javid. He lost his last fight to Eamon Zahavi. And I think, look, that plays into why I'm picking this and why I'm not picking him straight up. Also, his price, let me just check his price straight up here. It is, if I can find it, -260 best price. Wasn't the biggest fan of that straight up, to be honest, right? I think when you lose a fight in the fashion he did the last time out, I think you will be a little bit safer. I think you will be a little bit more concentrated in what you do, not concentrated as in like my waddy, right? you will adjust your game a little bit. And I think against a guy like Ricky Simon, like the way that Basharat would normally, I think, beat a guy like that, take him down and submit him. Now, his brother might be slightly better with the submission, but he's plenty of submission himself, I believe. 6 submission wins in his career, yeah. So he's good on the ground himself. But he can fight on the feet as well. I think against Simon, 32 years of age, 26 fights in, lost his last 3. I do think maybe there's a step gone there a little bit. And that's why I'm picking Basharat to win the fight. I think if you look at Simon's record as well, he's lost 3 decisions in his career. Basharat's won 3, only lost 1 himself. There was 1 no contest thrown in there as well. I just think everywhere Basharat might be a little bit better. And that usually lands in a decision. We're talking about flyweights here as well. It's very, like, I don't think he is way better than Ricky Simon anywhere. I just think he's a little bit younger, a little bit fast. Sorry, bantamweights, not flyweights. A little bit faster, little bit better on the feet, maybe a little bit better on the ground. Although Ricky Simon, on his day, is really good everywhere. But I just like Basharat. I'm gonna go with Basharat. So there's that bet, and the last bet. I was going to leave a flyer off, but I'm going for a flyer because I like this bet anyway. I'm going for my guy, Fluffy Hernandez, win via knockout at plus 500. And I think Fluffy's going to come in here and knock him, spark out Brendan Allen? I don't. But do I think Fluffy is going to pull him to deep waters and drown him and finish him? Yes, I do. I can't wax lyrical enough about what Fluffy Hernandez has done over the last few years. Hard to believe Kevin Holland beat him, to be honest. But what he's done to Pereira, Kopylov, I think especially, Shabazian, Barrio, has been unbelievable. He's finished all of those. Now, there's some submissions thrown in there as well. And obviously, we're talking about knockout here. He only has 3 knockouts in his career. But when you look at Brendan Allen's record, 14 wins have been by submission. Only lost once by submission in 30 fights. He's not exactly the easiest guy to get out there with submissions, right? He's only lost twice by knockout as well. Last time out Imava was by decision. Was on a great run before that. But honestly, I'm not picking anyone to beat Fluffy Hernandez in this division. Can I stop there? Unless you're maybe Shemaev or maybe Duplessis. But I think Fluffy's on such a run at the moment. I think he is unstoppable. His style is just made for MMA. He is made for MMA. His cardio is unbelievable. His relentlessness is unbelievable. He just drowns guys. And it's going to be hard to drown a guy like Brendan Allen because he's tough. Tough as all boots is Brendan Allen. No doubt about it. But by God, at plus 500 to finish a guy who's, probably not going to get submitted, but who, you could drag, and Anthony Hernandez has 15 minutes to drown you. 15 minutes. That's a lot. That's a lot of time. That is a lot of time. Imagine if he 25 minutes. I'd love if this fight was 25 minutes, actually, but I don't know if he'll need it. Fluffy late, plus 500. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Those are the 9 bets for the weekend. I went through them a little bit quicker this week. Because we saw many, but let's reflect on a few other possible bets here. Let's look at KSW first. Aside from that, one I was looking at, Christian Kazabowski, he's fighting Milos Petrasek. He's plus 150 in that fight. Again, I think that's a close fight. I'd probably go for Kazabowski at plus 150. Bartosz Sivevsky, whose name I ruined, picked him at the weekend. I do like him to win. Plus 130 again. Wasn't as confident maybe in that as some of the others, but I do like that bet. So I'll give you 2 plus bets there. What about Octagon? I didn't look at the Kozma Pugac fight because I do think Kozma will win, and he's minus 275. But I think later in the week, if there is Kozma by decision, I like Kozma by decision in that one. Again, Samsonidze is a big price as well, minus 350. I do think he will win. The biggest surefire bet of all time, I'll tell you this, is Daniel Scior. Now, he's minus 1480, but I watched some of his opponents, Anthony Zovak. This guy should not be fighting an Octagon or KSW or any place like that. This guy is journeyman, and he will definitely win that fight. So if you want to throw into an accumulator or something, Daniel Scior is an insane price, massive, but he will definitely win that fight. And in the UFC, a lot of fights have changed. Austin Vandervoort has been signed. He's fighting Nikolai Veretinkov. Haven't had a lot of time to look into this Veretinkov fight after I heard the fight fell out. I Austin Vanderweer plus 160 though. Interesting. Have a look at that yourselves. I like Bukauskas. I always like Bukauskas to win by decision. At this level as plus 300. I think that might be a good bet there against Rafael Quisera. But he's a good fighter as well. I wouldn't go against him. He's plus 250. That's not a bad bet at all there, I don't think. And then further in the UFC, I said Fluffy straight up is minus 275. Cejudo straight up is plus 225, minus 250 for Yadong. I honestly, I'd love to know. Let me know in the comment section below. Just go Henry or Yadong. Henry or Yadong. Who are you picking? Let me know in the comment section below. Everyone. Lots of people listening to this. Just one word. Henry or Song. Henry or Yadong. Let me know who you think will win that. But yeah, otherwise, do you know what? I like Ian Cutelaba. I saw someone else talking about that they like him. I think it might have been the Duck. At plus 1.5. Oh no, was it John Anik? Maybe? I don't know. Or Anik's podcast? I'm not sure. Plus 155 against Ivo Aslan. Aslan, good and bad. So I'd go for him there. And on Alonzo Minifield, I'll tell you what. I've been caught with Alonzo Minifield so many times at minus 218 here. I do think he'll find Julius Walker will find it tough coming in, but that plus 180 is very tempting. But that is that for the betting show for this week. Just to recap my 9 bets: Creasey minus 188, minus 110 for Hulme, Petrasek at plus 105, minus 188 for Brichta, Crit at minus 225, and the minus 225 again for Humburger. Then we have Cejudo and Song to go to decision at minus 138, minus 163 for Basharat to win by decision, and then Fluffy via knockout at plus 500. All right, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. Please bet responsibly. Let me know in the comment section below any of your thoughts about who you think will win the main event, and I will be back next week. I'll see you then. Thank you very much for watching. Please bet responsibly. Visit Sherdog.com. My name is Sheehan. I'll see you all next time.